ladies and gentlemen, Bianca Belair!
When we look at Bianca Belair, we see a strong woman, a wrestler who seems invincible mentally, like a feminine John Cena. And yet the reality is very different. Before becoming an example for many WWE fans around the world, she had to live with a disorder that affects 2.8 million people in the United States. I'm happy to meet you on the Wrestling Paradise to discover or rediscover together the very inspiring journey of this pioneer of the women's division, which you would not necessarily imagine when we see her jumping to the ring. You will learn, among other things, how Bianca got out of a time in her life when she had suicidal thoughts, how a seemingly random message from her brother led her to what would become her big passion, her father's very surprising former job, which explains many things, but also how she developed a very toxic relationship with food to the point of making herself vomit every day, and even the pivotal scene that finally made her see the end of the tunnel in her life. And you'll never guess which WWE legend spotted the wrestler and enabled her success at NXT in the aftermath. You are on the Wrestling Paradise, the secret fight of the warrior Bianca Belair. Let's go! Bianca Belair is a woman who encourages everyone to be the best version of themselves, to exploit their full potential. And that's what she's determined to be in her life today. She herself admits that she spent the first 25 years of her existence living for others. She was looking for their validation, but from now on, she won't let anyone put her in a box. In reality, Belair is like a chameleon. She's full of nuances, facets, subtleties. All these words are not words without substance in Bianca's case. They come from a lifetime where she had to face her own demons, find the inner resources to get out of a path that might have led her to a tragic death, and instead take the one of the EST of WWE. By the way, did you know that the first promo of her life took place in a non-televised NXT event on June 25th, 2016, and that she already said there that she would be the IST, that she was the prettiest, strongest, baddest? Even if it wasn't exactly the EST yet, it's still pretty incredible to tell yourself that 5 years before her big explosion and the ascension of her character, Bianca had already written and imagined everything. Long before the world discovered her, all the foundations were already laid for her to become the star of NXT and of WWE more generally. And yet, nothing was given to her. Her journey is far from having been easy, as you will see.
You should never stop striving to be the best version of yourself.
Bianca Belair was born in Knoxville, Tennessee on April 9th, 1989. She grows up with 3 brothers and 1 sister in a family where sport was very important. You will have understood it, she had a taste for competition in her blood. Her brother Jeffrey played football and was a source of inspiration for her from an early age. First, she spent a lot of time climbing trees. But it couldn't go on because all it would take was a little mistake and a disaster could happen. So Bianca's parents had an exceptional idea to keep their daughter busy. At the age of 5, she started athletics. First, she does hurdling over 50 meters. Honestly, isn't that a nice metaphor for her personality? At the time, and as it will be the case later in her life, she crossed every obstacle and nothing could stop her. In high school, she already showed a rare maturity. Parties and potential vices, bad company, not Bianca's style at all. Who was very sporty on the other hand, between hurdling, basketball and even cheerleading, which she did for the boys team right after participating in the girls match. What mattered to her was to leave Knoxville, which wasn't enough for her ambition. In the meantime, at home, she writes poems and repaints the walls of her room.
Some of this stuff I look back, I'm like, what?
Learning all this, we get the impression that Bianca was a perfect young role model, destined for success. But the reality was sometimes much darker. Anxiety, pain, depression, suicidal thoughts. Out of sight and far from the athletics track, Bianca suffers from a disease since high school: bulimia. It should already be known that by nature she was a more muscular girl, stronger than her comrades. But in this sports discipline that she loves, her coaches keep telling her that weight is very important. Except that this message had a very bad effect on her. By constantly talking to her about weight, her trainers have developed an obsession with losing weight in her. In her mind, she was obsessed with push-ups, calories. Her goal is to do the Olympics, and with this in her head, she does 1,000 abs and 500 push-ups a day. But she went even further. Without anyone knowing, even her parents, she started throwing up her food. Logically, by eliminating all her meals on the sly, she was actually losing weight. By being lighter, she went even faster. Of course, she seemed to fly over her competitors on the track, but this obsession ended up burning her wings. In her final year of high school, she was no longer even in condition to compete. Fortunately for her, she had already got her scholarship for university in North Carolina. What she avoided in previous years was more tempting than ever for her: nightlife, parties, eating, and she eats more than before, and it won't be without consequences. Her coach doesn't really hold back his opinions, tells her that she has to go back to the Bianca she was in high school. But the one she was at that time was in poor health. Despite everything, he managed to convince her that being this version of herself was necessary for success. So she started throwing up her meals again. She started having what is called binge eating disorder. It's a disorder where a person has compulsions during which, for 2 hours or less, he consumes a large amount of food that will soothe him, although these episodes are often tinged with feelings of losing control, guilt, and disgust for the people who suffer from it. Her relationship with food was becoming very toxic. As she herself confides, she was eating her emotions. She shut her feelings down with food. So much so that it made her sick.
So I suffered from bulimia, which started in high school. I was in a really bad place.
At the age of 18, without yet having the necessary maturity to manage such a problem, she's living very dark moments, which will push her to go find someone to talk to about it. They gave her medication, she goes to another university, just to create a fresh start for herself. But her issues that she wasn't facing were still there. She ended up stopping taking these drugs, which made everything come back even more violently. Depression was taking over her soul, without her really understanding why. She no longer wanted to be there, which will even lead her to try to end her life. Alone in her room at night, she ate. She explained that at that time, hurdling was an important part of her identity. When she wasn't performing well, the way she felt in life was directly impacted by it, as it happened when she gained about 20 pounds and she was running slower. In addition, having a coach at the time for whom weight and body image were very important made her obsessed with weight and locked her in a spiral of eating, vomiting, feeling bad, eating binge, keeping everything to herself. Fortunately, in her journey, she was lucky enough to come across a coach, a certain Vince Anderson, who was much more human than the previous one. He was the one who made her stop this discipline by telling her that her mental health was way more important than sports, and that she had to solve that problem as a priority. This will have enabled Bianca to go to therapy, something that she encourages for all people in the same situation as her. Anyway, these trials will lead her to a psychiatric hospital. Her parents visit her and are deeply shocked because they didn't have the slightest idea of everything their daughter was going through. Facing them, she feels guilty. She feels like a loser. Maybe it was the moment of lucidity she needed. In fact, it was the first time that she opened up, that she was vulnerable, without being ashamed. She was giving others the chance to help her, and this will be a revolution for her. No more university changes, no more running away. she's going to come home and face her problems once and for all. Take a step back. Do you realize that we're talking about Bianca Belair, the one who will main event WrestleMania in 2021 and who will seem invincible, and all that in front of millions of people watching her? In any case, she ended up having a discussion with her parents on whom she could count to support her. This dialogue, even if it didn't help her immediately, gave her faith and optimism that things would improve. In fact, it's not really a coincidence that Bianca Belair is such a showgirl. The sense of spectacle runs through her veins. Her father was simply in a music band, the Belair Brothers. He sang, he danced, and during the first years of the future wrestler's existence, that's how he provided for his family. As a little girl, Bianca used to tell her mother that later she wanted to be on a stage and have people throwing roses at her feet. A prophetic Bianca. But the path to this vision had more detours than expected. One day, her brother sends her a video of women doing CrossFit. And then it's a revelation. She sees these athletes as muscular, strong, proud females. Bianca was fascinated and absolutely wanted to become like them. The flame was rekindled in her. Her inner child was living again.
I work my ass off, even in front of thousands of people, when thousands of people aren't watching.
After a long period of perdition, she returned to her original passion for sports. But this time, it wasn't hurdling. In this new discipline of CrossFit, she climbs on ropes, which is reminiscent of that kid she used to be who climbed trees. She lifts dumbbell bars. No one will tell Bianca anymore what she's supposed to do as a young black woman. And at that moment, guess who she caught the eye of? Mark Henry, the world's strongest man turned WWE legend, who specialized in talent scouting, since he was the one who noticed the future Braun Strowman. Initially, Bianca Belair believed that it was an imposter, that it wasn't the real Mark Henry. But an exchange of private messages will prove her wrong. For Mark, there's no doubt about it. She has this it factor. She has everything to be a WWE superstar, the world's biggest pro wrestling federation. Little by little, she finds herself in a training camp in Orlando, Florida, to find other people who want to break into sports entertainment. In this big tryout, Bianca is going to do a tremendous performance. It was so impressive that everyone even applauded her. For the managers of the company, it's obvious they must recruit her. One phone call and an explosion of joy later, she opened the doors of this federation that makes so many people dream. How crazy it is to think that without that video her brother sent her, all this might have never happened. At the Mae Young Classic, this pro wrestling tournament with competitors from NXT and the independent circuit organized by the WWE, Bianca will feel at home in the ring. She felt that her body was made for this discipline. She hears the reactions of the crowd. She discovers a whole new universe. Now, Bianca has definitely found herself. Behind the scenes, she can't hold her tears back. She gets the validation of Triple H, one of the biggest names in the business. No more running away, playing a role, hiding what she was going through. The world was giving her validation, and she was simply herself. This moment with Triple H was fundamental for her. She even describes it as an out-of-body experience. Finally, she no longer had that imposter syndrome that she had. She realized live with the cerebral assassin that she was born to wrestle. At NXT, she will meet her future husband, Montez Ford. With him, she will be able to share their respective victories, the ups and downs of life as wrestlers. Together, they will even be entitled to their own reality TV, while yet Bianca was telling those around her that that's something that she would never do. Her investment in pro wrestling is matched only by her fabulous determination to be the best. Did you know that she designs her own outfits? Since childhood, she has mastered that art, and we can only salute Bianca Belair for the care she puts in her job, creating new flamboyant outfits week after week. She does the outfits in the locker rooms, on the plane, in the car, in the bus. She has a sewing machine with her. It's something that takes some time, for sure, but it's part of her identity. Stitching has no secrets for her. Through her clothes, she expresses her personality, and we can say that she's been able to connect with the fans and make herself essential for the WWE officials. Besides, imagine that her long ponytail, which we can't miss when we observe her look, is very real, just like the sounds we hear and the twists we see when she whips a rival with it. It was none other than Montez Ford who had encouraged Bianca to keep that long ponytail. While she wanted to do like the other girls, he encouraged her not to touch it, to stand out from the others, and that the fans would remember her. Even when she was doing CrossFit, she was already making her outfits. She was talking on the mic, standing out, giving a real show. She was clearly made for wrestling.
Thank you for everything.
What a beautiful reaction from Bianca. Seeing this and remembering everything she went through, we tell ourselves that she appreciates everything she has achieved and that she deserves this success. As of spring 2020, after WrestleMania 36, she was already on her way to the main roster, which is the goal of any wrestler at NXT, the developmental, and maybe of even any wrestler in general. As she herself says, whether in front of 10,000 people or in the shadows or by herself, she works her butt off. In this big journey, her parents have always been there for her. They accompanied and supported her in every step of this long odyssey. Several years after listening to their daughter reveal her issues without judging her, they saw her triumph at the 2021 Royal Rumble, where it all began with an unforgettable reaction. Bianca Belair's journey is a magnificent message of hope. After experiencing depression, loneliness, inner illness, after getting lost and finding herself again, she became a pioneer of the women's division. In 2021, her victory at the Women's Royal Rumble was an extraordinary moment, just like WrestleMania 37. In 2022, she triumphed again at the Showcase of the Immortals against none other than Becky Lynch, another woman who made wrestling history. In this discipline, she was able to merge her love of athletics, CrossFit, physical performance, acrobatics, show business, poetry, her ambition, her affirmation of who she wants to be against all stereotypes in a big marriage from which we could remember only one idea. Bianca Belair will always be herself and will never apologize for that. Feeling loved, supported, not judged when she talked about her problems may have saved Bianca's life. Would she have had the same life if she had continued to hide everything and manage her troubles on her own in the shadows? If you are going through some hard times too, ask for help if you feel that you need it. Talk to people around you, share what you live, because just like Bianca, and even if we don't necessarily realize it when we are overwhelmed by pain, this first step can really make a big difference. And this is how this documentary about Bianca Belair and the eating disorders that have impacted her life a lot ends. Taking a step back on her journey and seeing her amazing evolution, we can only congratulate her for her courage and perseverance. Her example is a great life lesson, and it's wonderful that today she can inspire her fans and people who have become familiar with her journey. We can say that in the WWE Women's Division, she is one of those pioneers who have impacted it forever. After having been able to discover or rediscover her career, I have a debate for you. Do you find that Bianca was a more entertaining character when she was at NXT, being some kind of heel, ghetto princess, or the following years in the main roster where she was a babyface who would look more like Superwoman? Come and give your opinion in the comments. I wonder what you think about it. And in any case, it will be interesting to discuss it together. We can say that this topic raises a lot of questions. I hope you had a good time watching this video, and I invite you to stay in the paradise of wrestling to look at some other ones. See you right away.
And that's the bottom line, cause Stone Cold said so. What?